Defiant. I am your disembodied narrator. Now we are gonna read Jurgen, A Comedy of Justice. Um, Based on the fact that there's German involved here, I'm gonna guess that the correct pronunciation is Jurgen, not Jurgen. So if Jurgen is incorrect, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Otherwise, I'm gonna be pronouncing it Jurgen. This is, of course, written by James Branch Cabell. I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation there. So we're going to go with Cabell. And of course, the amazing people at Project Gutenberg for making this available and all other public domain works. Well, currently available. Anyway. All right, so we are going to start with the foreword. We're going to start with a couple of reviews because Jurgen, as you're about to find out, kicked off a pretty big firestorm for obscenity. So let's begin. Jurgen, A Comedy of Justice by James Branch Cabell, 1922. All right, and here's where we're going to enter the German that's listed here. So just a quick word on the German. I have no skills in speaking German. I do not read or speak German. So, just a word of warning. You are going to hear my best attempt at phonetic guesswork, and it's going to be a train wreck. And I apologize in advance to the entire German language. All right. Of Jürgen, ich they maken Menkuen, that of an old we've got his youth a goon. Okay, this might not be German. It looked German at first glance. And got himself a shirt as bright as fire. Oh, this might be Pig Latin, my bad. Wherein to jape yet got not his desire in any country ne condition. All right, well, I apologize to every language on that one. 2. Burton Raskow. Before each taradiddle uncowed by socialists, robuster persons twiddle, tremendously big fists. Our gods are good, they tell us, nor will our gods defer, remission of rude fellows, albeit to err. So this, your Jurgen travels, content to compromise, ordainments non unravels, explicitly and sighs. Okay, so these are a few of the reviews. 1919, 1922, somewhere within that range. This is from Philip Borsdell. Others with better moderation do either entertain the vulgar history of Jurgen as a fabulous addition unto the true and authentic story of Saint Eugenius, we'll go with that, of, oh no, Poctissimi, no clue on how to pronounce that, pretty sure it's going to be a reoccurring theme. Or else we can see the literal exception to be a misconstruction of the symbolic expression, apprehending a veritable history in an emblem or piece of Christian poesy. And this emblematic construction hath been received by men not forward to extenuate the acts of saints. All right, the next coming to us from E. Noel Codman. A forced construction is very idle. If readers of the high history of Jurgen do not meddle with the allegory will not meddle with them. Without minding it at all, the whole is as plain as a pikestaff. It might as well be pretended that we cannot see Poussin's pictures without first being told the allegory, as that the allegory aids us in understanding Jurgen. Okay, the next and final review is brought to us by John Frederick Lewiston. Two are bane to advocate delusion, to hail for the bitterness of irony. This fable of Jurgen is, as the world itself, a book wherein each man will find what his nature enables him to see, which gives us back each his own image, and which teaches us each the lesson that each of us desires to learn. I don't know, those don't really seem like shade to me. Maybe that was shade and I'm just not picking up on it. All right, here's the foreword. All right, pretty sure this is Latin. My apologies to the entirety of the Latin language. Nescio quid certe est, et halix in limine lateral. Again, my apologies. That's as close as I'm going to get. A foreword which asserts nothing. In continental periodicals, not more than a dozen articles in all would seem to have given accounts or partial translations of the Jurgen legends. No thorough investigation of this epos can be said to have appeared in print anywhere prior to the publication in 1913 of the monumental synopsis of Aryan mythology by Anglo de Ruiz. It is necessary to observe that in this exhaustive digest, Professor de Ruiz has given 7, page 415 at Sequentia. Oh my God, apologies again. A summary of the greater part of these legends as contained in the collections of Verville, and Bulg, and has discussed at length and with much learning the esoteric meaning of these folk stories and their bearing upon questions to which the solar theory of myth explanation has given rise. To his volumes and to the pages of Mr. Lewisdom's Key to the Popular Tales of Poctissime. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. I'm just going to go with my best phonetic ability here. Must be referred all those who may elect to think of Jurgen as the resplendent, journeying, and procreative son. Equally in reading hereinafter will the judicious waive all allegorical interpretation, if merely because the suggestions hitherto advanced are inconveniently various. Thus Verby finds the Nessus shirt a symbol of retribution, where bulge, not sure, with rather wide divergence, would have it represent the dangerous gift of genius. Then it may be remembered that Dr. Codman says, without any hesitancy, of Mother Sarita, this mother middle is the world generally, an obvious anagram of Erdaes, and this Sareda rules not merely the middle of the working days, but the midst of everything. She is the factor of middleness, of mediocrity, of an avoidance of extremes, of the eternal compromise begotten by use and want. She is the Mrs. Grundy of the Lachey. She is Comstockery, and her shadow is common sense. Yet Codman speaks with certainly no more authority than Prote when the latter, in his Origins of Fable, declares this epos is a parable of man's vain journeying in search of that rationality and justice which his nature craves and discovers nowhere in the universe. And the shirt is an emblem of this instinctive craving. As the shadow symbolizes conscience, Sarita typifies a surrender to life as it is, a giving up of man's rebellious self-centeredness and selfishness, the anagram being sedere. Thus do interpretations throng and clash, and neatly equal the commentators in number. Yet possibly each one of these unriddlings, with no doubt a host of others, is conceivable, so that wisdom will dwell upon none of them very seriously. With the origin and the occult meaning of the folklore of Poctisme, if anybody knows how to pronounce that correctly, please let me know. This book, at least, is in no wise concerned. Its unambiguous aim has been merely to familiarize English readers with the Jurgen epos for the tale's sake, and this tale of old years is one which, by rare fortune, can be given to English readers almost unabridged, in view of the singular delicacy and pure-mindedness of the Jurgen mythos. In all, not more than a half a dozen deletions have seemed expedient. have been duly indicated, in order to remove such sparse and unimportant outcroppings of medieval frankness as might conceivably offend the squeamish. Since this volume is presented simply as a story to be read for pastime, neither morality nor symbolism is hereinafter educed, and no parallels and authorities are quoted. Even the gaps are left unabridged by guesswork, whereas the historic and mythological problems perhaps involved are relinquished to those really thoroughgoing scholars whom erudition, erudite, erudition qualifies to deal with such topics, and tedium does not deter. All right, hold on a second. That's really gonna bother me that I'm mispronouncing that. Hold on. We're gonna pull those two up.
Erudition.
Erudition is correct. Okay, great. Now we're gonna try the P word that I can't quite get correct. Please tell me it's going to be able to provide that to me. Patum. Are you serious? Pwatem, but the spelling is Poictesme. How am I supposed to infer that? Patum. All right. And its linguistic roots in the medieval French cities. All right. That's why I don't know how to pronounce either of those medieval French cities either. All right. Patum. All right. I'm just going to leave that up in case I lose track. All right. Here we go. Okay. In such terms and thus far ran the foreword to the first issues of this book, whose latter fortunes had made necessary the lengthening of the foreword with a postscript. The needed addition, this much at least, chiming with good luck, is brief. It is just that fragment which some scholars, since the first appearance of this volume, have asserted, upon what perfect frankness must describe as not indisputable grounds, to be a portion of the 32nd chapter of the complete form of La Haute Histoire de Jurgen. Oof, again, my apology. And in reply to what these scholars assert, discretion says nothing. For this fragment was, of course, unknown when the High History was first put into English, and therein consequence appears. Here, little to be won either by endorsing or denying its claims to authenticity. Rather, does discretion prompt the appending without any gloss or scola of this fragment which deals with the judging of Jurgen. Now a court was held by the Philistines to decide whether or no King Jurgen should be relegated to limbo. And when the judges were prepared for judging, there came into the court a great tumblebug, rolling in front of him his loved and properly housed young ones. With the creature came pages in black and white, bearing a sword, a staff, and a lance. This insect looked at Jurgen, and its pincers rose erect in horror. The bug cried to the three judges, "Now, by St. Anthony, this Jurgen must forthwith be relegated to limbo, for he is offensive and lewd and lascivious and indecent." "And how can that be?" says Jurgen. "You are offensive," the bug replied, "because this page has a sword, which I choose to say is not a sword. You are lewd because that page has a lance, which I prefer to think is not a lance. You are lascivious because yonder page has a staff which I elect to declare is not a staff. And finally, you are indecent for reasons of which a description would be objectionable to me, and which therefore I must decline to reveal to anybody." "Well, that sounds logical," says Jurgen, "but still, at the same time, it would be no worse for any admixture of common sense. For you gentlemen can see for yourselves, by considering these pages fairly and as a whole, that these pages bear a sword and a lance and a staff, and nothing else whatever. And you will deduce, I hope, that all the lewdness is in the insectable mind of him who itches to be calling these things by other names. The judges said nothing as yet, but they that guarded Jurgen and all the other Philistines stood to this side and to that side with their eyes shut tight, and all these said, we decline to look at the pages fairly and as a whole, because to look might seem to imply a doubt of what the Tumblebug has decreed. Besides, as long as the Tumblebug has reasons which he declines to reveal, his reasons stay unanswerable, and you are plainly a prurient rascal who are making trouble for yourself. To the contrary, says Jurgen, I am a poet, and I make literature. But in Philistia, to make literature and to make trouble for yourself are synonymous. The Tumblebug explained. I know, for already we of Philistia have been pestered by 3 of these makers of literature. Yes, there was Edgar, whom I starved and hunted until I was tired of it. Then I chased him up a back alley one night and knocked out those annoying brains of his. And there was Walt, whom I chivied and battered from place to place and made a paralytic of him. And him, too, I labeled offensive and lewd and lascivious and indecent. Then later there was Mark, whom I frightened into disguising himself in a clown suit, so that nobody might suspect him to be a maker of literature. Indeed, I frightened him so that he hid away the greater part of what he had made until after he was dead, and I could not get at him. That was a disgusting trick to play on me, I consider. Still, these are the only 3 detected makers of literature that have ever infested Philistia. Thanks be to goodness and my vigilance, but for both of which we might have been no more free from makers of literature than are the other countries. Now, but these 3, cried Jurgen, are the glory of Philistia, and of all the Philistia has produced. And of all that Philistia has produced. It is these 3 alone, whom living ye made least of, that today are honored wherever art is honored, and where nobody bothers one way or the other about Philistia. What is art to me and my way of living? Replied the Tumblebug wearily. I have no concern with art and letters and the other lewd idols of foreign nations. I have in charge the moral welfare of my young, whom I roll here before me, and trust with St. Anthony's aid to raise in time to be God-fearing Tumblebugs like me, delighting in what is proper to their nature. For the rest, I have never minded dead men being well spoken of. No, no, my lad. Once whatever I may do means nothing to you, and once you are really rotten, you will find the Tumblebug friendly enough. Meanwhile, I am paid to protest that living persons are offensive and lewd and lascivious and indecent, and one must live. Then the Philistines who stood to his side and to that side said in indignant unison, and we, the reputable citizenry of Philistia, oof, now I can't even say that right, are not at all in sympathy with those who would take any protest against the Tumblebug as a justification of what they are pleased to call art. The harm done by the Tumblebug seems to us very slight, whereas the harm done by the self-styled artist may be very great. Jurgen now looked more attentively at this queer creature, and he saw that the Tumblebug was malodorous. Oh my god. All right, let's look that one up too. Might as well. I have a feeling that's going to be the theme for this book. Wait, what was the pa patem. Okay.
Malodorous.
Malodorous, right? How could I not?
Malodorous.
Right, malodorous, of course. Why didn't I think of that? Malodorous. All right, I'm going to start that over. Jurgen now looked more attentively at this queer creature, and he saw that the Tumblebug was malodorous, certainly, but at bottom honest and well meaning. And this seemed to Jurgen the saddest thing he had found among the Philistines, for the tumblebug was sincere in his insane doings, and all Philistia honored him sincerely, so that there was nowhere any hope for this people. Therefore, King Jurgen addressed himself, as his need was, to submit to the strange customs of the Philistines. Now, do you judge me fairly, cried Jurgen to his judges, if there be any justice in this mad country. And if there be none, do you relegate me to limbo or to any other place, so long as in that place this tumblebug is not omnipotent and sincere and insane. And Jorgen waited. All right, and that's the end of the foreword. Wow, this that was pretty well done, mocking the people that were outraged by the book. I am super excited to see what all the hubbub was and see if it really is as bad as they all claimed it to be. So join me next time for chapter 1 of Jorgen. Thanks for joining me on the forward and see you next time.